Concord has been a failure of epic proportions for Sony and Firewalk Studios, but now the former owner of the developer is, quote, shaken to the core by the game's failure while ignoring any discussion of DEI or wokeness leading to its downfall. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, I do not think that DEI is the only reason that Concord failed. I've said this multiple times. I'll continue to say it. It was just a very bad game. It was poorly made. The activists behind it attacking customers did not help, but yeah, DEI is a major part of it, though now, apparently, the former owner of the developer is shaken to the core. It says Probably Monsters, whose CEO and founder is Harold Ryan, the former president and chairman of the board at Bungie, sold Firewalk Studios and Concord to Sony back in April 2023, but now it's being reported that they're shaken to the core by Concord's abysmal failure, so they can say that they are surprised by this and shocked all they want, but literally nobody else was surprised that this was such a massive flop. Leading up to release, it was backlash after controversy after controversy. People were not happy with what we saw in the teasers and trailers. And then the open beta released and they couldn't even get 2,500 people on Steam. And yes, we do not know the console numbers because those are not publicly available. It didn't sound like those were much better either. And when you're releasing a product where they're focused more on pushing a message by making something for modern audiences, aka sensitive snowflakes on social media, something that fits, modern sensibilities, it's going to be a flop. We saw it with Alan Wake 2, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, Flintlock The Siege of Dawn, Dustborn, now with Concord. And they really invested a lot of time and money into this, thinking it was going to be the next major Overwatch. It was going to be a smashing success. And after seeing its failure, I gotta be honest, it's hilarious because gamers knew yet again that this was not gonna go over well. Maybe if these companies actually listened to us, if they actually tried to take our feedback into consideration, they could make some money, but it's like Sony just wants to throw it all away, and right now they're facing a hell of a lot more backlash because of the PlayStation 5 Pro's ridiculous price structure. But as it says, things are not going so well right now for Sony, and Probably Monsters is allegedly shocked by this. The article says a source close to Probably Monsters informs that Park Place that Probably Monsters has been shaken to its core due to not only the game's failure, but to the extent that it failed. While the company and its employees have been shaken by the failure, one thing that is not shaking them, and that they are not even acknowledging, is the game's embrace of woke ideology and diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. Interestingly, the source also informed that Park Place that the company did indeed have discussions beforehand about how heavy it would embrace woke ideology. As shown in the game's final product, it does not appear that dissenting voices were able to bring any reason to those wanting to insert the woke ideology, and now it appears executives want to bury their heads in the sand. So I do not think DEI is the only reason this game failed. I think that it was just poorly developed. The character designs, which do tie back into DEI, were just terrible. The story descriptions for each character were extremely cringeworthy. The gameplay itself was really lackluster. The maps were only okay, and it just did not seem like they put 8 years of development time into this game. It seems like they made it in 3 years, absolute max. And back in 2021, when Sony started the publishing deal for Concord, it was rumored that they basically decided to take Sony's feedback into consideration and they scrapped what they had, which would make a lot of sense given the final product. And that's why Sony ended up buying them last year, because they basically ran out of money. But because they listened to Sony, Sony decided to buy them, and Sony expected this to be the next Overwatch. So they took a leap of faith, and while it did not pay off for them, But we basically knew from the start that this was going to be a massive failure. And this is why companies need to start listening to gamers. Because if 3 years ago they were going, we're going to create this game, and then they showed it off a year ago and people were not happy, they could have delayed it by one more year and they could have taken our feedback into consideration, altered some of the abilities, really revamped the maps and the designs. But they did not do that because these people believe they know what is best, and they're so worried about putting the message first that they're not thinking about, is this actually going to sell? And we've seen this happen time and time again. Dustborn, Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, the list goes on and on at this point. But if these devs actually tried to listen to us, maybe they'd be making money, because they're so focused on creating products for this fictional modern audience that they're not actually going, is someone actually going to buy this? Because modern audience doesn't really exist. There's maybe, if I'm being generous, 2,000 people that could be labeled the modern audience, and they're primarily sensitive snowflakes on social media who do not buy games. Now, of course, this is just a rumor, so take it all with a grain of salt, but this seems extremely consistent because as time has gone on, we have seen multiple people that have worked at Firewalk Studios coming out and belittling gamers and attacking us for not buying their pile of activism filled slop, them saying that, oh my god, if you don't like diversity, don't buy our game. And clearly nobody bought their game, so it can't just be bigots who didn't like their title. It's just gamers in totality didn't like the shit that they were producing. They talk about how, of course, gamers are weirdos and are terrible because they're celebrating the fact that this server's closed down and this game no longer exists. And that's led to employees being terrified of the future. And yeah, I'm sure that there are a few people that worked on Concord who were just genuinely passionate and wanted to create a good game. But when you are surrounded by primarily activists and your game fails, I really can't feel all that bad for you. Plus, on top of that, these people got paid to do a job. So I can't really feel all that sympathetic for them. The average Sony developer gets paid over $100,000 a year. So it's not like they didn't get paid anything. They did their job. And yes, maybe they lost some opportunities because they're not going to be making DLC. But on the flip side, they got paid for what was created. And you really can't expect anything more than that from a company of this size, or just a company in totality. Plus, there are rumors that this game is actually going to get revived as a free-to-play game. I think that Sony's going to do that just because they've put so much money and time and effort into it that they will want to attempt to re-release it, hoping to bring people back in, but I don't think that's going to be the case. But at the end of the day, I can't say I'm shocked by the failure of Concord, and most people are not surprised either. We knew that it was going to be a nightmare for Sony, and Sony's really taking a lot of heat right now because of the PlayStation 5 Pro announcement. Also, people are pointing and laughing because of Concord's failure, so I will be keeping my eye on this, but as of right now, allegedly, the former owner of the developer is shaken to the core by the game's failure while ignoring any discussion of DEI or wokeness leading to its downfall. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.